stick my head in, they have maybe a half dozen species of fish. And more rural streams will have 18 species of fish. And they certainly don't have the crustaceans and they don't have the insect larvae that the more pristine streams do. But there's still something going on there. And if you can look and say, oh gosh, there are a couple of species of shiners and a couple of species of darters, they're really pretty. Maybe there's a couple of sunfish. It is really cool to see sunfish with their mounds. Well, imagine what it would be like if you spent a decade rehabilitating that stream.
So I live in Houston. There's a creek. Yeah, there's a creek in our neighborhood we go to, and it's actually like a concrete embankment. And it is fun I always bring my kids down there. It seems like a weird thing to do, but I'm a weird fish nerd. But so we go down there, and every time it floods or whatnot, you see new stuff. There's Texas cichlids in there right now. Yeah. That'll go away at some time. There's always like smallmouth bass.
Yeah.
I always see these real pretty sailfin. I guess they're sailfin mollies. And you see the tadpoles and and I get to tell my kids like, Dad, what is that? Oh, that's a crawfish. And they love it, and it's like a way to introduce. Yeah. It's funny. It's just a concrete embankment,
right,
with a drainage ditch, but stuff's still going on there.
Exactly. And it's something where, so if you think about, you have kids and you want to show them nature, you could take them, you could spend a whole bunch of money, fly them across the country, you go to Yellowstone, or maybe you go to Africa, you spend a whole lot of money, you go to Africa and see all these animals. But if you were to take them to a local stream, they can be 6 inches away from an animal. And that animal, that fish, is like, doesn't really care because you're not really a threat to them. They'll continue exhibiting their exact natural behaviors if you just float there and watch. And that's not something you can do anywhere else. You can't walk up to a bunch of deer and just watch them. You can't watch a full ecosystem. But in a stream, you can. And that's what makes it so special. It's such a way to connect with nature. And streams are the lifeblood of our entire system. So a healthy stream means a healthy terrestrial ecosystem as well. So I love the idea of inspiring people to go down to a local stream, bring your family down to a local stream and get them to ask questions about it, because suddenly that whole ecosystem comes alive and it becomes like, oh, Africa's in my own backyard. I don't have elephants, but I do have these really cool Christmas darters that are beautiful, bright red and green.
And all that sounds funny, but I think, people here at Aquashella will get that because that's what kind of nerds we are, and that's why we've congregated here.
But I will say, I've brought friends of mine that aren't fish people into those systems, and they're surprised. Maybe they don't have the same connection that we do because we have a deep connection with fish, but they're still like, oh, this thing is alive. This stream actually has stuff going on in it.
Sometimes all you have to do is give people context.
Yeah.
Maybe they just didn't pay attention to it, but if you know what you're looking at and you start describing it like, oh, I just see a drainage ditch, but you started contextualizing it.
Right. It's like in my neighborhood, there are these little signs on all of the gutters that say, this goes into a freshwater system, but it has a picture of, usually it has like a picture of a trout or something. And I think until you stick your face in a stream, you think that freshwater systems are what, trout, sunfish, and bass, basically fish that you catch for food. And that's not even a half of it, what a system is. And that's what's really special about it, because if you show people, suddenly they'll be like, oh yeah, I understand why we need to protect this system, because there's something there. It's not a dead pile of rocks with some water flowing into it. So yeah, beat this horse to death, but
so
stick your face in the stream.
Basically, your argument is freshwater is better than saltwater because there's just better access to interact with it.
I think from a human level, you have the ability to connect with nature by just going into your backyard and seeing a freshwater system. And you just don't with saltwater.
Right now, you're pissing off people in Florida.
Yeah, well, people in Florida have screwed up their saltwater systems. So what are you going to do?
And there's some really great freshwater systems in Florida, too.
Yeah, there's more and more accessible freshwater systems than there are saltwater. In fact, that's a good argument.
You're going to be hard-pressed to find an ecosystem where people have access to saltwater and don't have access to freshwater. Because how are they living?
Right.
Freshwater. You're probably going to have both. And you know what? If you have both, that's awesome. What a privilege that is. But, maybe you could make the case that the saltwater is more impactful. But the freshwater, you can have a direct impact on that watershed pretty easily. Whereas saltwater, it's all interconnected. If you're saying this stream in my backyard is polluted and I want to stop that, your local city council is the best path forward for that because it's in your backyard. It's entirely within their municipality.
Right.
It's hard to say we need to stop coral bleaching. And how do we do that? How do we fight climate change? That's an insurmountable problem. Preserving a local stream, that's doable.
Yeah, this is a great reminder, not only of nature is local. You don't have to go somewhere. I'm just repeating you, but in my own words.
Yeah.
There's nature. I live in the Bay Area, right? One of the 5 biological hotspots in the world, and we paved over 75% of it. So we forget that it's still a biological hotspot.
Exactly.
And we don't go out and and look in the street. Weirdos like me, we go looking for salamanders and all that kind of stuff. But it's there, and it is infinitely accessible. You're absolutely right.
And to further my case of the accessibility, it's pretty easy to go snorkeling with just a mask and a snorkel in a freshwater stream. When you start talking about going into an ocean system, there are barriers. Maybe you need flippers, maybe you need to get a scuba certification, maybe you need a boat. None of that is required for
you need to pay attention to tides.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really accessible, and it's this gateway into appreciating nature. The same way that I think birding is a gateway to appreciating nature, because you can get a second-hand pair of binoculars for really cheap, and suddenly you can start collecting. I've seen 200 different species of birds
from my yard.
Through my yard over the course of a year. Freshwater fish kind of feel like the same bucket for me.
Yeah, I love it. Local safari.
Yeah.
Whatever your local safari is, go do it.
Exactly.
You've all got 100%.
100%. Yeah, just maybe don't wear sunscreen when you're doing it because you don't want to destroy the local system.
Or you're also making me think of that saying that they say, think globally, act locally.
Exactly. Exactly. And how powerful would it be if aquarists started saying, I'm going to go to my local city council and advocate for behalf of the things that I connect with, the fish, in my own habitat? That sounds awesome.
It's pretty great.
Pretty quickly we could just start actually making a change.
Pretty great.
Yeah. So that's my case.
Pretty great.
What do you think?
I think you win.
I mean, I feel like you're conceding.
Yeah, well,
but I appreciate the concession.
On this on this scope, you framed it in a way that is very hard to argue about.
Yeah.
I've made the argument before. I've made the argument we should close Yosemite, right? At least 5 years on, 2 years off, something like that, because nobody actually needs to go to Yosemite most of the time.
Yeah.
And you can make the same argument that nobody needs. The group Hydros has done some Oculus stuff on the reefs in Palau.
Yeah.
And that's pretty great. So do you really need to go and see it? I think most people, I don't know. I want your take on it. Most people don't.
Yeah.
But most people should be seeing, I want to say most people should be seeing what is easy for them to see.
Yeah. I guess one question, rather than blocking off an area and saying, well, we can't go here, because I think humans do not like it when you tell them.
No, they get very upset.
What you can do is argue for better options, right? Rather than saying we can't use plastic, say, well, here are these other options. Here's biodegradable plastics, or here's glass bottles that we can refurbish and reuse. Maybe that's a better option. Well, what if we didn't have to go to Yosemite to see nature? What if we could just go on a day trip down, 45 minutes down the road?
Instead of 6 hours or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It may not be a matter of saying no. It may be saying, what if, rather.
Yeah. The other side of that, because I don't know if you've been to Yosemite, but it's in the summer, it's not a good time. It's a lot of people in a little space and lots of people doing weird things. And I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, no.
I was going to say, consider, sometimes I think maybe Yosemite, you think of it as a sacrifice zone. This is where you send all the people. The infrastructure is there already, but the spaces around it keep them more wild. And, I don't want to say don't go, but at the same time, I don't want to make it easier. It's a fine line, right?
Yeah. I forget what this author was. I think he was talking about Yosemite. He was a ranger that basically was like, no, it was for Arches National Park. There's a ranger that wrote a book about this. There shouldn't be a road in Arches. You should have to walk into Arches. And that's an interesting case, that basically by making it too accessible, you're robbing the experience of the natural world. I don't know that I buy that, but it is a compelling argument.
I mean, isn't that the thing of like, you know, indigenous or they not indigenous tribes, but the uncontacted tribes? You're like, I mean, because I'm interested in all that stuff, but it's like the second you contact them, it's all screwed up.
Yeah.
It's like, how are you gonna? It's like trying to observe an electron or whatever. The second you see it, it's moved or whatever. But
observation augments it. Yeah. I mean, in terms of what is it to observe something when there's 100 other people also observing it as well? Is it more magical to see an elk, or is it more with 100 people all also taking pictures?
Yeah.
Or is it more magical to see a squirrel in your own backyard that's 3 feet from your face?
I'd say squirrel. I was in India a few years ago, and one of the things was to see tigers.
Yeah.
And I did not enjoy that experience in any way, shape, or form because it was a race safari. It wasn't even safari. It was tons of cars driving as fast as they can from place to place to place. Yeah. It was like, this is not how you see wildlife for me.
Oh, I agree. So I have been to Africa, and I've spent time looking at wildlife, and I've been on public safaris, and I am a nightmare to go with, because for a lot of people, they're like, I want to check everything on my list.
Right.
And I very much operate into like, we found the jack, or we found a leopard. I want to just watch this leopard for like 4 hours and just sit here and just watch it.
Yeah.
I don't want to check 8 other animals off my bucket list. I want to feel like I understand this one.
Yeah, we've got this one here and it's doing stuff. Yeah. And if we sit here for an hour, it will do interesting stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. We were. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
Yeah. We went. It sounds weird. We went on a small group trip to Galapagos, and there was a photography. There was a photography component. Nobody else wanted to go with the photographer, because the deal with the photographer is we would go, we would sit. There's an iguana here. We're going to look at this iguana.
Yeah.
And it was such a better experience than the people who were just racing through to, as you say, check it off.
Yeah, totally
I saw it.
I mean, it's a hard thing. So working in natural history, we talk about like jumping from tuna to orangutans. That was something that we said before the went live, as it turns out. But there's this urge to jump from thing to thing to thing, and there's something really powerful about saying like, let's persevere our ADD brains and say let's actually live with one animal for a whole hour and just explore this one animal. There's not really a market for that, but I think people would appreciate animals more if we could just say, let's actually understand everything about this animal by observing it.
Do you think there's more of a market, or maybe a growing market for it, in given what like all the channels are doing their own kind of niche shows rather than trying to instead of trying to appeal to everyone, they're trying to appeal to enough people. But you're more connected to the natural documentary kind of world.
It's interesting because there's this world of slow TV that for a while I think we all thought like maybe slow TV will be a thing where basically it's not a whole lot of narrative. It's just like, let's live in this space. So rather than tell you about the orangutans, let's just have a camera point at it and just have it be a continuous shot for an hour and just have that be an experience. And that hasn't really taken off. That said, zoos have been, and aquariums have been really successful with live streams of aquariums. Like the Monterey Bay Aquarium gets millions of views. You're just like, here's this aquarium. We're going to stream it for 8 hours.
Right.
So maybe there is some interest in saying, I just want to live in this.
Maybe we need to push it more because the bird cams, the nest cams.
Exactly.
My friend keeps sending me this Panamanian feeding station cam. So, and he watches it for hours.
I mean, it like, as you say that, it makes me like think I should write a grant for my local stream and just say like, can I set up like 8 underwater webcams and just as a public service, you can go onto our county website and see a stream cams around.
That seems like an awesome idea.
And unfortunately, how humans work, the worry about that is someone comes up there and picks up your cameras and is like, oh, leave my stuff alone. No, to bring it back to the creek thing is similar to what you're saying. It makes me think, we first come down the embankment, I have a little son, and he throws a rock, and I'm just like, well, hold on, dude. And we do this, and we sit down. And I'm like, well, this is different because, look, that crawfish was trying to get something, and then that Texas cichlid got mad because the crawfish got too close to its brood. And then you see and he's like, well, what are those little fish in that sailfin? That's the male. And he keeps putting it, and he's harassing the females. He's trying to do, and then my son's like, oh, and you know, for me, it's like turning it into something like, I know he's just a little kid, throw a rock, but it's like, but observe what's going on, man. Yeah. It's more interesting than throwing a rock in the water. I agree.
I mean, one of the things that when I talk with people about if I'm ever in the opportunity to hire someone to work with me, one of the things that I always try to keep in mind is, so it's pretty easy to make a film about elephants because people care. Like, elephants, they're awesome. It's much more compelling to say, can you make a film about like lichen, like a little thing that's growing on a rock? Is that something you can tell a story about? And the answer should be absolutely. Yeah. It's really cool, not individual organism, but oftentimes 3 organisms, 2 fungus and an algae, all hanging out together in one system. That's really cool, but it doesn't appear really, it's not as sexy right off the bat. But that's kind of what I as a test for me is, as a storyteller, can you get someone to care about something insignificant? What you're talking about is that same thing on a personal level of, hey, this stream is really cool. Let's see if we can get you to care about it by telling you something you didn't expect. Yeah. Showing you the things that you would have just walked past.
You know, I remember when people watching was a thing.
Yeah.
When people would like to go to a mall or something and let's people watch for a while. And I think now they're watching the Kardashians.
Yeah.
And it's the sexy, however, I'm putting that in air quotes if you can't see me, because that's different to everybody. But the push to making it, I don't know how to get away from that. How do you get away from charismatic megafauna?
Oh, it's really hard. And the push has been to kind of apply the same nomenclature to smaller animals. So the idea is, all right, so what superlative can we apply to this thing? You know, is it the most brightly colored freshwater fish in the world? Is it the smallest fish? Is it the shortest life expectancy? Is it long? And if you refine something tight enough, almost anything can have a superlative. I'm pretty sure I am the largest aquarium YouTube channel in the DC area.
Right.
Cool.
We are the #1 rated vulgar language reef podcast.
Right. But that's like the closest that we've come. Is kind of like, how do we create a superlative for every animal? And I wish there was another way, and maybe there is. Maybe it takes another generation of people to come in to discover that, because we all get set in our ways, right?
Yeah.
And someone has to come up with that solution, because there are 40,000-ish species of fish out there, and we can't make any of them charismatic megafauna. That seems wrong. I guess sharks. That's about it. I feel like you can make other things charismatic.
Yeah, but and look at what's happened to Shark Week. It's become superlative fest. It's
true.
There's no signal in there anymore. It's all noise.
It's true. It's hard. It's really hard.
Really interesting
to navigate that, because what is it? In local television, the phrase is, "If it bleeds, it leads."
Yeah,
and that is what Shark Week is, right? It bleeds, it leads.
Yeah,
make it as dramatic as possible.
It's quantity over quality.
Yeah, it's hard.
That's an interesting. Go.
But they have those documentaries where they do the I guess micro photography and then speed it up and show molds growing. I always like those ones where it show things decaying on a forest floor.
Yeah.
It's like, speed it up and show a mouse carcass, and they have a thing with like the bottom of the ocean, that dead whale, showing eels twist and pull off of that. I don't know, and not to be negative, but it's like, we're observing all these stuff in our nature, and it's like, I don't know, you better observe them before they're not there to observe. And again, not to be negative, but I just, my time will come and go, and I don't want to be here on a planet where we're not looking at cool nature things. It's just a blasted land, and I'm doing a book or a hologram showing, hey, look, there used to be elephants. No, certainly there wasn't elephants. Yes, son, I was alive when they existed.
Being a warrior on the wasteland.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. No.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna tie this in a little bow.
I love it.
You talked about
he's good. He's great.
You talked about the time lapse and the forest floor and all that kind of thing. And that's something that we can discover with the slime molds because of the advent of technology. We didn't previously have the ability to shoot beautiful time lapses where the camera is moving through the forest as it's decaying. And that's something that brings a system that would otherwise be invisible to light. So I'm going to bring this back to aquariums now, which is as we develop better tech to make fish alive, it has the ability for us to do the same thing with aquariums and freshwater fish or saltwater fish, where we can film them in ways that we never could before. Because so much of natural history filmmaking is putting in the hours, right? An animal isn't interesting all the time. It's interesting for like 15 minutes out of a day, and you've got to be there for that 15 minutes. So if we can create a perfect replication of the natural world, you can start to get those 15-minute chunks that will bring those animals to life. So that's hopefully where we're going. We're going to a place where as we're better at replicating nature, we're going to be better at capturing stories, and we'll get to capture stories that we never could before.
And I get this because I'm sure this is your field, but this is your footage, and then this is what you see on the program.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, that's great. I think we've strayed from our topic, and I don't care because I think this is much more interesting.
This is an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on, and we'll be in touch with you because now we know you exist.
Exactly.
Thanks a lot. All right, and that was us. We're gonna go away now. Enjoy Aquashella now that it's over. 22. What is it? What year is it? 2022 in Chicago. It's a great show, and we're looking forward to next year's season. Have fun, everyone. So that should be levels. So hello, everybody. This is Rich and Ben from Reef Beef Podcast at reefbeefpodcast.com. I guess we've never said that once the entire day while we've been doing this. We're at Aquashella 2022, and if you've been watching for the last 20 minutes, you've been watching us talk to Alex with no volume because we finished recording and thought we were done. We are back now for the debate that Sean Hale has had us have. Saltwater is better than freshwater. Changed my mind. And we have our last guest to talk about this. I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I don't know anything because I was over there when you sat down.
No worries. Yeah, I'm John Peeney, member and one of the original founders of the Aquascapers Collective.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hear so many good things. Matt Peterson has been telling me
yeah.
amazing things about you guys.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we're doing pretty well as a group. We got a lot of new blood in the group this year, and things are looking good. But yeah, I compete at the international level in freshwater aquascaping.
Okay.
So it's kind of my wheelhouse. But I know the debate topic. The thing is I'm kind of a water agnostic. And so the claim that saltwater is better than freshwater is a positive claim. So you guys kind of have the burden of proof.
You're right. We have made the
You
claim.
got the burden of proof
We
here.
have to tell you why it is.
Yeah. So why is that?
Why is saltwater better than
Yeah.
freshwater? The animals are more colorful. The ecosystems are very contained and diverse and crazy. 25 to 35% of the world's food comes from them. I know that's good. That's got nothing.
That's a good point.
But that's got bubkis to do with keeping animals in glass boxes. The colors are better is the wrong word. Well, we're being pedantic and using bizarre words. Like the colors are richer and fuller.
Yeah.
And the behaviors are more obvious.
Gotcha.
You can see it happening.
Yeah.
Plus, you've got animals that are rocks, and you've got rocks that are animals, and you've got plants, and you've got fish, and the winning argument from my side, I'm speaking for Ben completely apparently, is we have cephalopods.
Okay.
So, and cephalopods, the biomass of cephalopods outnumbers the biomass of fish.
Gotcha.
So we just win because just because of cephalopods.
Volume thing.
Yeah. So no, I'm not gonna. I don't know if I can really challenge that. I mean, you could say, okay, freshwater fish are more colorful. I could say, saltwater fish are more colorful. I can say freshwater fish are a little more camouflaged, or depending on what perspective you look at. But
and we can counter that.
Yes,
because I can.
You have things.
We have
that can,
anglerfish.
Yeah, they can. Yeah. No, I got it.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
We've never won at all so far this weekend on this, so we got a little bit here.
So are we talking about aquarium specific?
I think that's what Sean's point was.
Yeah. Okay. Aquarium specific. I can tell you why I prefer freshwater planted aquariums, and particularly aquascapes, over saltwater or even reef tanks. And they're beautiful. Yeah. Animals are amazing. But to me, it's actually when you take in the whole of what's in between the four glass walls. I think right now, I'm not saying it can't be done, but right now, if you look at the top freshwater aquascapers versus the top saltwater aquascapers, there's some beautiful saltwater layouts, but the things that people are doing in the freshwater aquarium hobby, it are really pieces of art, to the extent that they're painting pictures with plants and natural materials and fish. And when you take in the whole, I personally think it's a little more rare right now, and it's a little bit it's pushing the boundaries a bit more in terms of applying art to the aquarium.
I thought your angle was going to be more true to nature. What you're keeping in a glass box is your argument was going to be more true to nature than what we're doing.
Yeah, see, I take a little bit of a different take on that because to me, one of my other hobbies is philosophy. The distinction between what is and what isn't nature is a difficult one. I mean, even human intervention is technically part of nature. Everything is sort of natural. Now, you could say, okay, when I stick my head under the water somewhere natural, what do I see versus what's in the glass box? And that's actually, I think freshwater biotopes are beautiful. I think saltwater can match that. I've seen saltwater biotopes that are just as beautiful as freshwater. What I haven't seen yet is somebody to take a saltwater tank and say, I'm going to paint this picture. I'm going to push the limits of artistic expression as much as possible within these dimensions that I have.
So this is a fantastic. I have a philosophy degree undergrad, so
awesome.
This is great.
Yeah.
But you're probably going to wipe the floor with me.
No,
I'm old.
not at all.
But I think the point you bring up is really fascinating, because my goal as a reef keeper has got nothing to do with artistic vision.
Yeah. Right.
And this may be because freshwater has 75 or 100 years head start on saltwater keeping.
Yeah, it could be.
That we got enough to do. And I think we have been getting, besides trying to force, we can grow a coral on a skull and look, it's a coral skull. And that still took 2 years. Yay. So the speed of it is also an interesting thing that we should put a flag in so we get back to it. But my goal is to make a naturalistic environment where the animals thrive, not to make a piece of art. In fact, in a piece I just wrote for Matt Peterson, I said, it is not if you want a piece of art, get a piece of art.
Yeah.
If you want a naturalistic environment that the animals thrive in, get a reef tank.
Yeah.
It's a different approach, and I don't think I've ever been in a conversation where it's been clarified that way. I'm sure other people have, because there are people smarter than me all over the place.
Yeah.
But I'm not coming. I totally love the idea of you doing what you're doing to make art. I've never seen it work in a saltwater environment. And I think a lot of that has got to do with the time it takes for it to mature. I mean, he was in a saltwater aquascaping contest, and that's really just piling up rocks.
Yeah.
There's nothing really to be done there.
Yeah.
So now I babbled a lot. Somebody else should say
fine.
something.
Yeah, with the timing, it's a good point. It does take a lot longer to get a reef tank to get to the stage where you could essentially consider it fully matured. I think a very interesting way to perhaps approach a saltwater tank is more as a piece of art and try to match the speed of freshwater tank is actually with macroalgae. Yeah. Like Jonathan Butkus, who's here at the show, he's been dabbling in that. I know others have.
Boy.
Yes. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of potential there that's yet to be tapped in terms of how far you could push the artistic value of a saltwater aquarium. I will say one thing though, your point about it being a place where fish can thrive, that is something that is often overlooked in the aquascaping community. However, I think the best aquarists actually nail that. Masashi Ono from Japan, he's one of the longtime competitors to IAPLC, which is the International Aquatic Plant Layout Competition. His layouts are beautiful. They're pieces of art, but they're also perfectly suited for whatever species he's keeping. So whether it's like a betta, macrostomata, or angelfish, or he's incorporating elements that mimic the ideal situation for that fish in the wild. So the best at what they do are incorporating.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm trying to, as the common man, I'm trying to wrap my mind around this, because the way I always looked at it, because I agree with Richard in that. So I own a maintenance company in Houston, and I'm the one that goes, it's a weird business model because it's me. Yeah. And so I always tell, whether it sounds pretentious, I tell my potential clients, I've gotten to a point where I feel like I'm an artist, I'm a nature artist.
Yeah.
So I don't look for hobbyists. I look for just wealthy people. It's like, let me make living art for you. It's honest to God. Yeah. That's what I'm doing. But so I try to create a saltwater ecosystem, and I do freshwater as well, but I try to create a saltwater ecosystem to make those animals thrive. And in that end goal, it looks like art to me. So what I'm trying to wrap my head around is, you're saying making an aquarium of art. What would be the difference of just not making it a great place for the things to live, and then say, oh, and now it looks like art, to specifically saying this is just art?
Now it's art, craft, and design talk.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that a saltwater reef tank or any kind of saltwater tank isn't a piece of art, and I think they are, depending on what sense you're talking about. What I'm saying, my particular argument is, oftentimes the focus of, say, a reef tank is to look at individual specimens within the setup, and then you kind of step back and look at the whole, and you're saying like, okay, yeah, this is there's a lot of beautiful things in this glass box. The focus on freshwater aquascaping is more to take the whole in at once.